Welcome to another episode of the Artist Emancipation Podcast. I have a guest here with me today who is amazing. I love her brain. Her name is Jess Bowe, and she is a poet and an artist. I just like to call you an artist because you are one of the few people I have met in my everyday life that just thinks like I do. So I'm so excited to have a conversation with you today. Go ahead and give us a little backstory about you and the things that you create.
Oh my gosh. Well, like, where does anyone start ever? Okay. Well, hi, I'm Jess. And oh my gosh, there's a lot to say, but I guess like the core of all of it is poetry for me. And so I've been writing since, really since I was little. And it actually started before I was even able to write. I was like always memorizing like the stories, like the bedtime stories and the nursery rhymes and things that my parents used to read me at night before going to bed. And like, I'm really grateful that that's like the kind of routine they had me in when I was a little kid. But I would always like kind of go off on my own. When I was younger, it was just me and my brother. So like, I didn't have a lot of siblings growing up. I did have a lot of cousins, but like I was alone a lot of the time by choice. So I would go out and outside of the yard, and I would bring a bag of like books with me and blank paper, and I would go sit on the rocks outside and like climb the trees and look at the sky and write stories about bunnies and whatever else I was writing about. And then like I've used writing as my tool of processing and perception and just understanding myself and my relationship to the world around me. I've been using it like that since I was little, really. And then I say a couple years ago, but it was like 10 years ago. Like, and of course there's so much to like, how do you explain your backstory, right? In like such a short little snippet of time, like there's so many things, but like the real big pivotal moment for me that I have to include is that, well, it's been 11 years now because she's 11. My daughter, Dakota, was born with half of a heart, and it's called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And like, that journey with her, we were in and out of the hospital. She had 3 open heart surgeries by the time she was 3. That event, having her, choosing to birth her in the first place, because that was the whole thing. Like, the doctors wanted me to abort the pregnancy, but like choosing to have her and to walk through that journey with her early on in her life was actually like it was almost like a rebirth for me. And it kind of set into motion this new trajectory for me of like, what is most important? What am I doing here? What am I doing with my gifts? Am I using them? And I had to really start asking myself some hard questions and answer them honestly, which is really hard to do because we don't always like to look at ourselves when it's not like the best light. And I had realized that I was kind of just like living in like the status quo, like going down the checklist of things I'm supposed to do as a woman, and as a girl, as a woman, as a wife, as a mom. But none of those things were like honoring what it felt to be alive for me. And it made me have to like be selfish in ways. And it made me have to like really just like take into account like, who am I being? And it really, I started asking those questions because it was like my daughter, I don't know how much time my daughter has here in this life, right? And like, she's looking to me to set this example of like how to be a person. So how am I being a person for me in a way that I feel that her time will be honored? You know what I mean? So, and that required me to really jump back into my gifts. And I ended up going back to school for my master's degree in creative writing. And it's interesting because it's like, I threw myself into that because I had, at that point when I jumped into my master's degree, I had 3 kids, 3 like little ones, and I was doing it from home. And it was like my only way to really like kind of invite myself back into poetry, like that I felt like that had to hold me accountable to it. But it's interesting because I've had to kind of unlearn all of like this like classical training in a way. Like, it's useful, but it's like it boxes you in terms of like your true core expression. And so, wow, how did I get here on this backstory? But no, really. So then I started, it kind of like that trajectory set me on this path of like, I really wanted to take my poetry and my writing and bring it into contact and kind of like union with this way of being where it's like there's something greater going on beyond myself, right? And beyond ourselves as individuals, right? But there's something greater, and it's like, how can I bring together this written expression and this knowing that there is something that is animating me, like animating through me, through my vessel, to paint the world with something. And how can I bring these two things together? And that's where the Sweet Slow was born. It was like, it really began as like my Instagram account. That's like how I felt safe enough to share my poetry every day. Like, it didn't matter if family was watching, whatever. It's not for them. It's just to express and to release it into the world. And then the Sweet Slow kind of became this other thing where it was like, oh, wait, like I can actually sit in circle with people and open up the floor so that other people can try this on. And this is where we kind of build these bridges, like across the divides of like, this is like, let's get down to what actually makes us human and what makes us, connected at the core, aside from all of these identities that we cling to. And I use poetry to do that and to access that. Poetry to like kind of explore this like way of synchronistic living. It's called chiromancy, and it's like, accessing the dream state, accessing this liminal space, and I use poetry to access that within myself and to bring that out into my physical, tangible world. And so, using poetry to do that. And then, so yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing.
I love it. And I think one of the things that we've known each other in the online space for quite some time, but we never interacted with each other other than like a comment here and there, right? We were like, oh, I love your stuff. Like, let me follow. But like how most relationships start online. But the one thing that really pulled me into your work and your journey and you as a human was the ease in which you access your vulnerability. And I know that does not come easy. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I think artists, especially today, have a hard time being vulnerable enough to share those dark, deep, personal things. But that's actually what accelerates our artistry, is to find a way to explain or translate that to other people where it fits their lives too. And I think you do a beautiful job of that. So if you could speak a little to that.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually something that I struggled with for a little while, was like getting to that place, especially in my writing. I always talk about how like when I was in college, like both undergrad and grad school, we would have workshop, right? So writing workshop, you would go in and you'd have prompts and you talk about like other famous poets and their work, and then you would have like a go at it, right? And you'd kind of almost like imitate these voices that you were introduced to, just to kind of like play around with language. And I remember like I thought that I was doing the thing in this class, like I got this, like yeah. And I remember sending in my work, because I did it at like wherever I was at the time. I was typing my work and I sent it in via email or Blackboard or whatever we were using at the time. And I remember posting it and getting an email back from my professor. And this professor scared the crap out of me too, because she was like, she just went in hard, like, okay, so you're saying this thing, so what? Like, so what? And it's like, oh, whoa, I didn't think I had to answer that question. Okay. But I was writing like so vaguely at the surface. It was like, here's a little tiny like glimpse of me, but also I'm going to keep it vague enough to where I don't have to touch anything and like get specific about anything. And my professor emailed me back and said, I see there's potential here, but right now you're not doing it. You're not doing it. And like, what are you actually trying to say? Like, what are you actually trying to say? And I'm like, I thought I said the thing that I was trying to say. And I had to like kind of take my work back and look at it and say, okay, well, what am I actually really afraid to say? I apologize. I have chickens around my feet right now.
You're just coming to comfort you.
Yeah. But like, it was like, and it didn't happen overnight, right? So I'd hand in this like subpar work. It was good, but it wasn't like textured, I guess is the word I would use. Like, it wasn't textured. It was kind of like, when I say what I'm about to say, I don't mean this to sound offensive either, but there's a lot of poetry. Like, if you go on Instagram, you're going to see it, and it's very easy to digest. It's easy to digest because very surface level, which is fine. Sometimes that's what you need, right? So, but that's how it was generic. Like if you looked at it, you wouldn't know this belongs to Jess. Like that's the thing. That's the difference. You wouldn't know like my signature, my essence wasn't there, right? But I got through the class. I got my, I got my grades. I graduated. That was where I was, what my goal was at the time, right? Just get through. And I did well. But it wasn't until probably, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago even. It wasn't that long ago. 5 years ago, maybe 2018 is when I started to like poke around at this. I started a practice just for myself where it was like, I'm going to commit to poetry so much that I'm going to write a poem a day. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a poem a day, and I'm going to let it be shitty. I'm going to let it be, it doesn't have to make sense. But my rule with myself to hold myself accountable is that I'm going to create this platform, The Sweet Slow, on Instagram with like 5 followers at the time. And I'm just going to post a poem a day. And I call this practice write and release, where it's like I write it, I don't edit it, I don't do anything to it. I just write what's coming up for me, and then I'm going to post it. And at first it was very like on the surface, kind of like that girl power, women's empowerment type, like, yeah, we're so strong, we're witches, like they can't destroy us. That was my poem, But then it became like, actually, I'm writing this and my oven door is cracked for extra heat because I ran out of fuel in my house and I have 3 kids to take care of and I don't know where the hell I'm going to get money from. But this is my art and I have to make my art. And so I'm sitting here on my kitchen floor and my kids are playing around me and jumping on me, and they don't know that we're out of heat right now, and I'm heating my house with my oven right now. Like that's where I was. And so it was like, can I be willing to just say that? And the first time I said something like that, I had people reaching out to me saying like, I can relate to this. Like this, this is like, that's when I knew like, oh, this is what it's really about. Like, and so it became like this is connecting me. And I think I was just hungry for that real connection at that time too. Yeah. But it was also like the thing that I thought was so powerful and I was a victim to suddenly became like, actually, no, I'm not victim to this. I'm just like, here I am writing about it. But actually, now that I've written about it, it doesn't feel so big. Like it's not taking up space in my body anymore.
Right.
I don't know if that like helps people to understand like how to do it, but it's more like you just have to sit there and devote yourself to going beyond the surface. And sometimes it's like rewriting something a million times, or it's literally just saying the truest thing. And actually, that was a workshop that I had for a little while called The Truest Thing. And that's what it was about. It's like, okay, we're just going to get down to it. What's actually true for you right now? Yeah. And like, don't hold back. And I'll go first. If I have to go first in the circle, I'll go first. So I can set that example of like, hey, wait, this woman doesn't have her shit together, but actually she is together and it's just fine. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, none of us have our shit together.
Exactly.
Like,
well, exactly.
Persona. Yeah, wherever
exactly.
we show up, it's truly a persona. But I think to touch on what you're speaking about, it's like, I think in today's age of the digital artwork and digital sharing, very few artists remember that the process of creation is actually therapy for us, right? The true down and dirty version of art is to process an emotion and to share it with other people and to get that connection, like you said, where today I think there's a little bit more attached to it. It's like, if I don't get 15 likes on this, it's shit, right? If I don't have enough people viewing my artwork, it's shit. But actually, that doesn't mean anything. What matters the most is like how it's providing for you first and foremost. And even if you get 2 likes on it, who gives a shit? If you allowed yourself to release an emotion that was taking up space and holding you back from doing more things, it did its job.
Exactly. It was such an incredible process too, because it was like anything that would start to come up for me during my day, I would turn into poetry. Yeah. And it was like I felt like I had like a living, breathing fire inside of me. And it was like I don't know how healthy this is, but I was barely sleeping because I was so on fire inside for this. that it was like literally any circumstance can happen outside of me, and I'm turning it into something really beautiful, and I'm turning it into art. I'm turning it into poetry. And it's like, once I turn it into poetry, like I had, right. So I made that commitment to write a poem every day for a year. I ended up that year, I had written over 2,000 poems. Jesus
Christ.
Yeah. And not all of them were good, but a lot of them were.
Like, people are always like, how do I get better at my craft, or how do I find my style? And I'm like, you do it.
You literally just do it.
Yeah. I love this. Oh my God. So, okay. So we're going through your journey. What would you say? I know you've had a lot of hardships going through with your daughter, getting things taken care of in everyday life. What would you say impacted your artwork the most, or who impacted your artwork the most?
Yeah. I think really motherhood, just in general. Really motherhood, because I think just the whole journey with my daughter changed how I showed up as a mom in general, and like what I was paying attention to, and the message, like the words coming out of my mouth, just in general, what I was speaking over my life, what I was speaking over their lives, like this, it just changed everything. And I think, honestly, I don't know if there's like really, motherhood is like, a lot of my poems have to deal with motherhood in some way, whether that's mothering ourselves, whether it's motherhood as in having children, or stewarding the land and talking to the elements and reconnecting to this like origin place of soul and spirit. I don't know if there's like really any one person or thing specifically that really had an impact. It was like a whole compilation of like pieces.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think most of all, the thing that really fueled my art and has fueled it is this connection to life and paying attention to signs and synchronicity. And I think that I'm always in amazement, and I'm always in a state of wonder for life itself, and like just how miraculous it all is, and how everything can just change in a moment, and how available love is to us if we choose to remove what's in the way of that. Yeah. And like how we get to express that in the world, and how that comes back to us tenfold. And just seeing it and experiencing that myself, that has really just been, I think, the most impactful thing for me.
Yeah.
Honestly. My dream state, my meditations, all that. Yeah.
And I love the idea that we get to create our own lives, because I used to think this was such bullshit. I'm like, okay, if I could create my own life, I'd be rich tomorrow, right? But it's like, it doesn't happen like that, first of all. But it's like, we make decisions that give us an outcome, and we are in complete control of that. And I like what you said when you were talking about your spaces, and how you said that if nobody else would share, I'll be the first one to go. And that's what being an artist is. Every sense of the way. Like, you are the one stepping up and speaking for your actions. You're speaking for your creations, and maybe nobody else is doing it, and that's okay. We don't want anybody else to be doing what we're doing, right? Like, that's my first pride as an artist. I'm like, if somebody starts to do what I'm doing, I'm fucking done.
Yeah, right? Like, I gotta find a new thing.
Right. But it's like that going first and showing people what's possible is so fucking huge in an artist career, I think. And you're doing it beautifully. So, of course. So we're at the beginning of like a new year, a new calendar year. It's February. Close enough. What are some of your goals for this year? For the Sweet Slow, for you personally, life in general?
Man, well, all right, there's a few things. So now that I'm saying them out loud, it's like, okay, gotta commit. No, but so in the Sweet Slow, and I haven't really touched on this yet, like in our conversation here, but I do typewriter poetry. That's actually like I think that's going to be a really big focus for me this year. Like, I want to make it like the heart of what I'm doing this year are these typewriter poems. And that's first and foremost, it's because of the human connection that happens. It's a slowing down process. It's like, it's a tangible thing. People have to open an envelope. They have to go to their actual mailbox and like receive.
Explain to the listeners what
yeah.
a typewriter poem is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Obviously. Cause I like not, but yeah. So I write these typewriter poems on a vintage typewriter, which I'm also in the process of gathering more typewriters. So I write these typewriter poems. I do custom pieces, typewriter events where I do like pop-up poetry, and like I can write a poem in like 5 minutes or less based on a phrase or a word or whatever's on your heart. You come to my table, you share that with me, and we have a little chat, and then I write a poem and I'm like, don't go too far. And then I like clack away on the keys, and then they come back and I put it in an envelope, box seal it, and then they have a poem to take home. That's also like kind of like a reflection of themselves in a way. So I do that. And then I just started doing, actually, I released this on Samhain on November 1st. I released the Oracle poems, which I started doing, which is where like I'm tapping into like the heart field of people who choose to receive these. They're almost like, it's almost like receiving a reading, but I make it very clear that these are not like prophetic, like, oh, you must, look out for this specific date because, something bad might happen. Like it's just like, this is what I'm feeling is in your state, in your place, like right now, in your field right now. And let me also hold up this mirror of like divinity to you and remind you like, hey, you're magnificent in case you forgot. Like that's the purpose of the Oracle poem. And so I do these Oracle poems, but with all of my poems, I write them unless I'm doing it at an event, but I write them and I put them in an envelope and I mail them out in slow mail fashion. And, it takes some time to get them, but that's on purpose. Like it's on purpose. It's like to create this anticipation that we seem to have forgotten in our society. And I'm trying to like really bring that back, or not even like bring it back, but really to hold on to a piece of that, because I feel like it's really important, especially with like artisanal crafts and things that are made through our hands and experienced in the body. So so that's what my typewriter poems are all about. Yeah.
I love that.
So that's definitely going to be a big thing this year. I'd love to do a lot more typewriter poetry for events this year. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But also I'm writing a book. Also, I'm writing a book. Actually, I'm writing 2 books right now. One of them is an anthology, which is like being put together by somebody local to me. He's been like my much older poetic mentor. Like he's in this poetry group that I've been a part of since I was 19. And he's taken me under his wing a little bit. Yeah. So he publishes local poetry and he wants to do an anthology of mine. So I'm working on that. But I'm also working on a collection called Machine. And it's like this discussion of like the dangers of AI and what is being taken and siphoned from us as humans, and the game that I just won't play. That's coming out at some point this year too. So those are like the big things I think I'm focusing on this year.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Especially with Machine, because we've talked a little bit about this behind the scenes, and me and Jess have the relatively same opinion about AI, and we want it to fuck right off. But it is, and I think we can talk a little. We got like 5 minutes to talk a little bit about it, but it just, to me, it's like the craft of artistry comes from human experience. And I'm like, why would we fuck that up? It's like, it's so weird to me that AI, the first thing it tackles is art. I'm like, go like learn how to do dishes, like go fold my laundry. I don't know, do something that like, why would you want to take over art with that?
Oh my gosh. And like, I think it's such a big thing. It's because I think that, I don't know if it's this, how appealing it is for something to be easy, because we are so pressured. We're like we've been under so much pressure and stress. And, we just need more time and we need more energy and we need more. And I don't think people realize that actually, if you tend to your gift, or you tend to your creativity and your sense of wonder and your sense of awe, which requires unhooking from the machine and getting back to your body and back to your heart and back to all of this that we have inside of us already, which is free and available to everybody. I think that like people would understand that actually you can fuel yourself with this. It actually tends to open up more time and more energy and more opportunity where, and in the process, it's that whole alchemical process of transforming this heavy, whatever might be heavy or happening circumstantially for you, through you, and changing your perception. That's consciousness. That's your own state of consciousness, that it's now growing, expanding, deepening, widening, and we're bypassing that, in my opinion, when we choose to have AI step in for us and create, take over part of that creative process where that transformation is happening. And now how does it happen without the full walkthrough of that process? But yeah.
But this is also where I like to talk about, I see you in the online space, I see myself in the online space, and I had this realization the other day, actually, and I was like, I always try to like stay pretty like on the line of like, because I understand there are perks of AI when it comes to like virtual assistant stuff. I'm like, cool, use it to write your fucking welcome email. I don't, whatever, right? But it's that, we're choosing to leave our brain behind, and we're choosing to leave ourselves out of the process, and it's almost like a fuck you to ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know that I can walk the line of like, oh, it's okay here and not okay here. Like, I think I finally have to take that stand and speak up for artists everywhere, whether it be a welcome email or it be a poem, that no, I don't support AI. Like, I don't. And when it comes to like my profession as a graphic designer, there are times when it comes into play, and now I see people doing like, oh, this is fucking weird to me. AI generated photo shoots. That's so fucking weird.
Yeah. I have big opinions about that.
Right. And I'm just like, it's nothing against whoever figured it out, right? Like,
right.
For you, but it's like, the artistry, and I could speak to my photographer about this, he spent years figuring out his process and really diving into himself. So like every piece of art that he creates, and I don't care if you think like one photograph is a piece of art, because it is, but he's infused in that. All of his life experience is infused in that. So long story short, I cannot walk that line of being okay with it here and not okay with it here. You and I have to like go online and state, this is not okay. This is not something that artists need to be using. And that's how change happens, right?
Right.
Like, and that's the thing I realize, is that I don't want to be in support of something, even if I'm just like not saying anything. Like, everybody knows I don't like it, but if I don't say anything about it, what am I doing? It's the equivalent of supporting it. You know what I mean? So that's where we come in, where we're the leaders of this artistry that has to continue, and it will continue because we're speaking up for it.
Exactly. Yep. And that's what you're doing. That's like, I feel like that's like the whole purpose of all of this, what it is that you're putting out too. It's like a reclamation of the artist.
Yes.
And it's like, that is available to us all if we choose to really, feed that in ourselves. So.
Yes. 100%. All right. Jess, I could yap to you all day.
I know, me too.
But we're at the end of our podcast session, and it was so amazing hearing your story and hearing the way that your talents have shaped your life. It's just truly amazing. But tell everybody who is listening right now where they can find you on the internet, how they can contact you if they want to learn more about what you do.
Yeah, definitely. So I spend a lot of time on Facebook and Instagram at the I think it's on Facebook, it's Jess Bowe, or it's Sweet Slow Jess is like my handle name on Facebook. Is that what they're called? And on Instagram, I'm the Sweet Slow. And then my website is in transition, like as we're speaking, from one place to another. That's thesweetslow.com. And so all of my stuff is housed there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you so much.
I'll be sure to link everything in the little comments on this podcast. So guys, go connect with Jess, follow her stuff. You will not be disappointed. She has beautiful, beautiful work. Jess, thank you so much again for coming on the Artist Emancipation Podcast.
Thank you so much, Shauna.